My name is Drew Waldron, and I am on with world-renowned planetary scientist Lindy Elkins-Tanton. Lindy, how are you doing?
I am great today, Drew. I hope you are too.
Absolutely. I'm definitely excited to get into this conversation because your work is so inherently interesting. But before we go into your work, your career, the current Psyche mission, let's just start off with a basic question. How do you introduce yourself and your very complex career to someone who might be unfamiliar with your work?
I usually say I'm a professor at Arizona State University, and I work very hard on how did our habitable planet come to be, and also education issues. But my big main job at the moment is the principal investigator, that is the lead of the NASA Psyche mission. We're sending a robotic spacecraft to a metal asteroid.
And we will dive into that plenty more later on. But before we do, I wanted to also ask, your career in education is as impressive as it is layered. You have a PhD in geology and geophysics, as well as your master's in geochemistry. You were a research scientist at Brown, and you spent years of your life working with many high-tech business ventures. What should your audiences know about your career before your current NASA contract?
Having this experience of working as a management consultant and writing business plans for high-tech ventures before going back to MIT to get my PhD was absolutely transformative for the rest of my life. I came to understand how critical people's sense of their membership of a team is to the success of a project, and what it means to help an organization run better. And then back in academia, where people tend to have their own fiefdoms and like run their own little mountains of disciplinary expertise, I really wanted to get back into that team model. And so it was fascinating. I was faculty at MIT, which was wonderful, and a director at the Carnegie Institution for Science before coming out to ASU, and bringing with me all the time this sense of what makes a team great. And that, it turns out, is critical for huge human endeavors like going to space.
Well, if you were looking to get back into the team model, you picked one of the coolest ways to possibly do it. You are currently leading NASA's Psyche mission, which is, as you said, a planned orbiter mission to explore the origin of a metallic asteroid. Now, simply put, what is the purpose of this mission? I know it's not going to be simply put, but what is the purpose of this mission, and what do you hope for the end result?
Well, think about space exploration. The real purpose of it is to inspire all of us here on Earth to know what we can do when we work in teams. And all of these NASA missions are for science. We've sent robotic and also crewed missions to the moon made of rock, to Mars and Jupiter and Saturn and Uranus, all these places made of rock and ice and gas. And one kind of object we've never visited, humans have never visited, is a body with a metal surface. A lot of people don't even know this exists out in space. And so by going to this largest of the metal objects in our solar system, the asteroid Psyche, we're doing primary exploration, going to a kind of body that humans have never seen. But also we're going to learn about the metal core that's deep within our Earth and which we can never reach. You know, Jules Verne had a great idea when he said journey to the center of the Earth, but we're not going to do that. So the way that we're going to learn about our metal core is by going to outer space. And that is what the Psyche mission is about.
That is mind-blowing. As of this recording, we are now 38 days away from the launch period of the mission, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we are 38 days away from the launch. Can you please explain what that means for those of us who are not familiar with the terminology and how everything works?
You are so exactly right with that. We are 38 days away from the open of our launch period. NASA requires that every mission find 20 continuous days, that there would be some time in every day that we could launch that rocket and get that spacecraft where it needs to go. Because you never know, there's a thunderstorm or a valve sticks or a boat goes downrange in the ocean and we have to, delay the launch. You can't be certain you're going to launch on day one. So there's the launch period, which is those 20 days. And for us, it's October 5th through 25th of 2023. And then within each day, there's a launch window. When during that day can you launch? So on the very first day, which is when we hope and expect to launch on October 5th, our launch window is actually an instantaneous launch. It's 1 second at 10:38 a.m. Eastern. That is when we expect to launch. But if something happens, we can slip to the next day and the day after that.
Just out of curiosity, how much time will there be between you knowing for a fact that you are going to launch on this day, later at this time, and then the actual launch?
It can be called off right up until the moment that the launch locks release and the engines are already firing. And in fact, I've learned that the way that you call off a launch is by on the closed vocal net, you say hold, hold, hold. Hold, hold, hold means launch abort. And so we won't know that we're going until the moment that we're going. Hundreds of people are monitoring everything to make sure that we're really ready to go. And so then the really critical things that happen next, assuming we do go at that moment, 60 minutes later or so, our spacecraft will separate from the rocket. Then we need to turn our solar panels to the sun and become power positive. And then we need to radio back to the Earth and get into communications. And that's going to be the moment when we're power positive and communications are on, that we're all going to be jumping up and down and screaming. And we invite you to jump up and down and scream with us.
I absolutely will be. But as big as that sounds, that's really just the beginning of the project if it is a successful launch. So a successful launch really means that there are years and years of work for the team. Now, can you tell us what happens next and what that team will be working on as it continues?
It's a beautiful question. And let me start by looking backwards for a moment. It's been 12 years they've been working on this mission. And then 6 years ago, after competing for 3 years, so I have a lot to say about gigantic competitions to win effectively $1 billion contract. We were selected in 2017. So we've been selected and under contract with NASA for 6 years now. But each one of these steps is just a marathon to another starting line. So like you said, now 12 years in, we finally get to launch. And it feels to some people like a finish line. It's just a starting line. So now the starting line is to cruise. So now the spacecraft is going to be cruising out past Mars, getting a gravity assist, and going all the way out to Psyche in the outer main asteroid belt. It's going to take almost 6 years to get there. So our team will become smaller. At peak, we're about 850 people. And after launch, we're going to be down around 200 people, I think. And some of those people will be operating the spacecraft every week, making sure we're doing the right thing, going the right way, and the thrusters are working. And then there's a big science team that's going to be preparing for the data to start coming down. Because when we reach Psyche in 2029, we're going to orbit for 26 months. Flying over the surface, closer and closer and closer to the surface, getting better and better at data until we understand what this mysterious object is.
It's crazy that a mission that complex is built upon the work of hundreds and hundreds of people all working in full collaboration. What is it like for you to collaborate with all these people who are the most intelligent in their field over such a long, what did you say? It's been 12 years that you've been working on this one still?
Yeah.
A 12-year project working with hundreds of people. What is it like working together towards that shared goal under your leadership?
Well, it is an incomparable thrill and a privilege. It's that can't be stated strongly enough, the opportunity to do this. And somehow the intensity of it, the huge price tag, the fact that it's taxpayer dollars, that we're doing this for humans on Earth, and the stakes of it bring into much sharper relief all of the issues of teams and humanity. I would say it's not the intelligence of the people that is the top, criterion or characteristic. It's really persistence. You need people who absolutely are determined to make it to the finish line. And the number of lessons learned about how to help teams run better, how to help each individual do better, and then how to help a networked team to do better, and then how to help leadership do better. Years and years of lessons around this that I love to share with people. It's a thrill and it's a miracle and it's a tragedy every day. There's always something going on.
Absolutely. Operating with a team like that, it makes you an expert in teamwork and resiliency, which coincidentally, those are big topics that you speak about through our audience at APB. What key takeaways about resiliency and teamwork do you have for your audiences when you speak?
I love to talk about these things. I love to talk about team culture and setting team culture in such a way that every voice can be heard. This is not just an ethical imperative. It's actually a huge way to drive down risk. If you can set up your team culture such that the people who are authentically doing the work get to speak up and say when something's wrong, where you don't punish the messenger, where junior voices can be heard because they're the ones with the soldering iron in the hand, or they're a person who's actually doing the coding, then what happens is you're able to uncover issues in time to solve them. And it's a huge driver to push down risk and bring success. And it's one of the reasons why NASA selected our mission, because they could see that our team work together that way. That's one of actually many different lessons learned that are actionable and actually simple and joyful to bring to your team that help with success.
Lindy, I want to ask you one more question, and this is a question that I find myself asking in a lot of these interviews. I'm a young person who has recently entered the workforce post-college. What advice do you have for young people who are interested in doing exactly what you do? What steps should they take, and what should they be looking out for?
Well, people who want to actually get into space activities, first of all, it's very important to realize that it's not just scientists and engineers, that every single aspect of human endeavor is needed for humans to have a successful, positive space future. And one of the beautiful things that's a lesson learned in these teams is that every person who's needed for the team is valued for their expertise. We need people who do budgeting and scheduling. We need people who do social media. We need people who write for the press. We need artists. We need lawyers. We need policymakers. We need psychologists. All of these people are needed for a positive space future. And so whatever your interest is, you can bring it to bear on the space future. And so I would then just add, I think there are several, I guess I would call them personal superpowers that each person can work on that make them the most effective in any team. And the first and most important one is speaking calmly under times of crisis and stress. I think we can all think of meetings we are in where some big piece of news came through and it wasn't good news. And you know right away that there's some people who are just calm and they're thinking about it and they're speaking calmly and they give the confidence that we're going to get through this. And there are other people who give in to complaining or feeling like a victim or panicking. And right away, each of us, if only subconsciously, is thinking those people are not leaders and they're not going to help us solve this. We need to turn to the people with the calm voices. And so making sure that you don't infect your environment with your emotional overload, but always bring your calmest voice is the first of the superpowers that I'd like to share with people about their individual efficacy.
I have no doubt that that's exactly how you lead your team for the Psyche mission. That's incredibly very well said.
And I try, but boy, I have my moments too. We're all human, right?
Well, 12 years with the same team, I'm sure that when something comes up, it could be easily resolved.
Yeah, we do our best. It's amazing. There are so many things that need to be resolved. And I would just add, this is another of the individual superpowers, the ability to spot a problem that needs to be solved and take some steps towards solving it. In other words, taking responsibility, something that you can keep in the front of your mind all the time, looking around yourself. Where can I help this improve?
Absolutely. Very well said, and excellent advice for not only entering the space exploration field, but any field anywhere.
Any field.
Absolutely. Well, that will conclude our conversation with Lindy. Lindy, thank you again for your time. I appreciate it so much.
Thank you very, very much for the opportunity.